this is Mark Walter with Sun Multisport Events, and I am here for another episode of our PACT series. So this is something that we started to try to help motivate and encourage athletes as we're all kind of hunkering down and trying to navigate our way through this pandemic. So the PACT series is designed to help people stay positive, keep adapting, remain connected, and continue training. So that's really the idea behind it. And where we're going to try to help us all learn and cope is to talk to some of the leaders and influencers in the endurance community. It's a great community. There's so many great people out there, and I'm joined today by one of those people, Emily Saul. Emily, good to see you.
Great to see you too, Mark. Thank you.
Sure. So Emily Saul is has a degree in sports psychology. So she's a sports psychologist, works with a lot of athletes to help them reach their true potential. She's the founder of E Saul Movement and is also one of the organizers and leaders of the November Project in Boston, which is a free fitness movement. If you haven't heard about it, it started in Boston, has now gone worldwide into 50 cities, I believe.
It started actually way back in 2011, so it's been around for a long time. Yeah.
Okay.
And it continues through this through this not in person time.
How long have you been with November Project, Emily?
So I've been co-leading the Boston community since 2014. So coming up on 6 years now.
Awesome. Great. Well, again, thanks for being here today. And as I mentioned, we're going to kind of walk through this to sort of hit those 4 parts of the PACT. So let's start right in with staying positive. Again, I think a lot of people might find that challenging. The news, if you're paying attention to the news and all you see are the numbers of, how many more infected and how many not enough ventilators, all this stuff, it can be a challenge. So how are you dealing with that, Emily? And how are you helping probably some of your own athletes as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's always really important to acknowledge the challenges that exist. People usually describe me as a pretty positive person, which I sometimes find surprising, not because I think I lack positivity, but because part of my strategy in sort of what we can call normal times, as well as now, is that positivity really comes from having a grounded balance of acknowledging and validating the challenges that exist, as well as the good things that are out there. So I caution people against the sort of blind positivity where you put your fingers in your ears and close your eyes and go, la, 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 everything's fine. Because it isn't always, fine. Like it isn't like everything is great right now. So I think, my best strategy for staying positive is to, when I have those moments of feeling really sad, feeling some of the grief that comes from, races being canceled, or like with the November Project, I miss the people that I see Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings on a very regular basis. So if I'm feeling, a little of that sadness or grief or disconnection, sometimes from the physical disconnection that we've had, been doing my best to stay socially connected, but physically disconnected. It's really to acknowledge that those feelings are real and they're very valid. And I try not to sort of push them away like I shouldn't be feeling them, because I believe it's really when we are able to validate and acknowledge those feelings, give them a little bit of space to just go, yeah, they're worthwhile. There's a reason that they're there. That is often what then gives a shift, gives some space for the other perspective, or the other kind of balanced part of the perspective to come into focus, which is that, yes, I miss all the people that I typically see. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I still have those people in my life, and that we have means and mechanisms to connect with them. I might feel, sad or a sense of loss about races that aren't happening. And then I can also really focus on the opportunity that exists in this time to be more intentional about training going forward, as those races become rescheduled, or as there are future opportunities for races and that sort of thing. So it's not this sort of black or white, all or nothing kind of perspective. It's really about honoring the feelings that are there, and then really giving equal space to the more sort of positive parts of the big picture.
Right, right. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What, so, you started to get into it a little bit, like adapting, right? So races are canceled,
Yeah.
people a lot of times come into the year with plans to do, or goals to achieve. How are you adjusting your goals, and how you're adapting to, what you now can do that is in your control?
Yeah. So I personally, I didn't yet have races on my schedule. I wasn't planning for a spring marathon or anything like that. I was coaching a number of people, doing some sports psychology coaching for people who were. But my adaptation specifically, I realized a couple of weeks ago that the experience of training for a marathon is one that I enjoy tremendously. Just the process, the journey of building mileage, and you feel like a 12 miler and you're like, oh, it's so hard. But by the time you get to a 16 miler, you're like, 12 miles is nothing. And there's really a sense of pretty tangible, like internal, tangible growth and development and like forward movement, which feels so incredibly important right now. And so one of the ways that I've adapted, and that I've encouraged people that I'm working with to adapt to this time, is to use the very familiar and comfortable structure of training for something, to keep moving and to keep building on the foundation that we have and working towards something. So I don't have a marathon on the calendar, but I'm training right now like I'm training for a marathon. So I have my Saturday long runs, and I'm doing the other pieces that are building into that. And so I'm encouraging people to adapt in sort of the mindset that we use to think about it, that you don't necessarily have that race that's happening, but you can still train like you are working toward it. I have one client I just spoke with yesterday who was signed up for a 50K, and it is canceled. And so his adaptation that we've been working on is that he's still going to run a 50K. Initially, he was going to do it right on the day that it was scheduled, but he's also noticed that it's challenging to find space on a trail. It was a 50K on trail. It's challenging to find space because people are still using trails and getting outside, and so he's going to do it on like the Monday following when it was originally scheduled, because there might be fewer people on a Monday than on the weekend. And so we're just really kind of thinking about how can we adapt the things that really matter to us, but not adapt them in such a way that we have to give them up, but we just have to get a little creative about how we access them in the same ways.
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the words we're hearing a lot of now is uncertainty. And I think for me, I feel that I have an event company, and there's a great sense of uncertainty around, all these events that, are on our schedule. And I think to your point, to still have a goal, that then you've got something certain, you've got something you're moving towards. You can still set that goal, even if the race you were signed up for is canceled. just like your client, well, I'm going to set that Monday as a goal to still do my 50K. And okay, there won't be maybe the fanfare of, support crew and other racers, which makes it harder, but you still have that goal. You still have something you're moving towards, and you'll still have a great sense of achievement doing it and accomplishing what you set out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, in my practice, I find it really important for anybody who signs up for something, especially something big like a marathon or an ultra that is so time consuming. It creates a great demand in terms of our time, our energy, even our money. A lot of resources go into it. And so I encourage everybody to really think about why, what does that mean to you? What's the value of this race for you? And for some people, there might be some kind of outcome goals. Well, I'm aiming for a PR, or I want to go farther than I've ever gone before. Some people are really able to discover the meaning in the training process for them. What it means about how they see themselves, or what it means about what they're able to overcome. How they're able to create some consistency, and through consistency we feel certainty, and those things don't have to go away just because the structure of a race that is organized, it has to go away. We can still get from the process many, if not all, of the things that are meaningful to us. And so right now is a really great opportunity for people to pay more attention to what has been meaningful about the races that you've done, about the experiences internally that you've had in training for those races, because that meaning didn't get canceled. That meaning didn't go away. And we can still, and that's what I was speaking to, about getting creative about how we access those and really achieve that meaning. Because, my husband is a great example. He's not a runner. He calls himself a ranner. He ran in the past and doesn't anymore, but he loves going to the gym and has a very regular practice, but the gym is closed. And so we've been really creatively adapting space in the garage that, was sort of bits and pieces put together. And we were able to acquire a little bit of equipment that we've now created a space that feels really good for us. And we're, fortunate to be able to, have the resources to do that. And even when people don't have that space or have the equipment, there are so many things that are accessible that allow people to still feel the significance of the training process and why we do this in the first place. So I really encourage people to dig into that.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about connecting and with November Project, it's all been about connecting, and this also kind of goes back to adapting as well. So the project is coming together groups of people that like-minded, encouraging each other, whether they're newbies or have been doing it forever. So now, how is November Project adapting and still connecting with the
It's such a great question. I think it's a great example of our collective community and humanity, especially in this time. So, for anybody who's also unfamiliar with November Project, as I said, it started in 2011 just as two guys who were working on finding accountability for themselves for working out, especially in the really challenging winter months in New England where motivation is low and the weather is bad. And so what started as two people just showing up together to work out, over the years, as you said as well, has expanded from Boston into more than 50 cities around the world. And so there are thousands of people who come together, and it is just as much about community as it is about fitness, but they come together to get fun, free, really engaging workouts that are accessible to people of all different levels of fitness. And we have held very, very much as a point of pride and like a value of, you know, the organization of November Project, that we're weatherproof and we've never canceled a workout due to weather. And so in Boston since 2011, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, we have forever and always been together. And so just a few weeks ago, when it was really clear that it was the right and responsible thing to do to cancel in-person workouts, my co-leader and I made a very quick and intentional decision that we would continue holding workouts and do it virtually. And thankfully, there's so much technology and a variety of platforms that can allow people to connect to each other online. We specifically chose to use a platform. We've been using Zoom, and we use that rather than an Instagram Live or a Facebook Live, because on the Zoom platform, people can see each other. And on Instagram Live, for example, they could see us and I could host a workout and tell everyone what to do. And theoretically, that's the same thing. But we knew that it would feel so different than what people regularly rely on as a part of November Project. And so we have been, we've been holding virtual workouts and for the last 3.5 weeks, and we've had really consistent attendance. We've had people who join us from other November Project cities around the world. We've had people who've joined November Project for the first time, like, I've never been able to come before, my schedule just doesn't work out, and they're popping online. And we have one day we have an option for people who can run outside. Some people are like I do it every week. I'm holding my phone, you know, with my face on Zoom, and I'm running along. And at the same time, there is an indoor workout that people are able to do. But we're also able to use the breakout room feature on Zoom, so people can get into small groups and have like a partner that they're working with, or a group of 2 or 3 other people to do different circuits and exercises with. And it has been amazing to both see live and also just get some responses and some notes from people with tremendous gratitude for the opportunity to feel connected in a way that we both are used to and really rely on, but that we need so much right now. And so it's been fun, not only doing that, but also getting creative. Some friends of mine and I have been doing like a FaceTime, you know, 1 minute before we go running. We actually then get off of FaceTime. We each go for a run for the same amount of time. And then we get back on FaceTime at the end to be like, hey, and then good job.
That's a great thing.
Yeah. And so I personally enjoy the challenge that comes and the creativity that really develops when we have these constraints and different limitations, because when we get really focused on what's important, which is, I love running with people. I love that experience of being together. And if I can't do it like I have, how can I still get as much of it as possible? You know, and still, you know, get the significant part. Like, what's the really important part? I love knowing that we're doing it at the same time. I love knowing that you're working hard while I am. You know, that helps me work harder when I'm going up this hill or I'm getting through a difficult moment. And so those are the things, again, that we can kind of keep paying attention to and really, really adjust to together. So it's been great to sort of see the response and the desire for people to stay connected.
I mean, we're social animals, and what's amazing is it's like we're finding more ways to connect. I mean, to hear you talk about the November Project, it sounds like your sessions are bigger than when they were live in person, you know, at Harvard Stadium, you know, so there's not a lot of bad things as a result of this, but there are positives. And I think, you know, there's probably gonna be some pretty strong runners that come out of this, you know, and when races start up again.
Yep. Yep, agree.
So I think we talked, you've covered training and how to continue training. You've just mentioned a couple of great ideas. I mean, I really love that idea of doing one-on-one. I'm part of a running club, and, it's becoming harder and harder because even running together, if you're trying to keep, a social distance on that, I just saw something, online the other day about the whole slipstream, and, it's still, it's not foolproof. So you really just have to be careful. So I think, learning about these other ways of connecting with your running friends and staying motivated is super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there are lots of ways both to, adapt how we're training and how we're training together. I agree with you that we're almost discovering things that have always existed. Just we haven't been taking advantage of them because we have the luxury of being together. Yeah, but I think there's a lot of good that can come. So maybe that's the positivity coming out.
Right.
I think that there's a lot of good that's going to come. I never would have thought that we could, do November project workouts in a way that sort of felt as good or real. And don't get me wrong. I very much miss the in-person kind of experience. And I wouldn't say that it is exactly the same. There's nothing like,
Right.
a group of people giving out some hugs and, getting a workout on, but the quality of what we are able to do is surprisingly high. And I think that maybe is a good takeaway as well for everybody in this time, is that different doesn't mean that it's going to be worse. Different is just different, and it everything takes some time, to get used to. So even if our training looks different because we don't have the same, physical group to run with, how can we create the emotional and the cognitive experience of being together, even if we don't have that physically? And that can really, I think, help support people's training process, help continue to drive toward training goals. And that is possible in this time. It's not always going to be easy, but it's definitely possible.
So my last question, I guess, is what would be your advice to someone that, is maybe really having a hard time? Maybe they had an event, that they were really looking forward to. Maybe it was the Boston Marathon, which is rescheduled, or some other event. Maybe they lost their job. They know someone that's sick. I mean, so there are people out there where there has been sort of a things compiled on top of another, that have caused all kinds of, concerns and probably depression. Those things are real. What advice might you have someone that's really kind of gone through a tough time as a result of this?
Yeah. Well, first I extend all of my compassion to people who are really struggling for all the different reasons. I want to highlight one thing, is that you just named the complexity of this time and this situation, which is to say that many of us are able to maybe look around and go, it's like someone else probably has it worse than me there. And then we do this thing where we conclude, therefore, I shouldn't feel bad about what I'm experiencing. And I want to give everybody permission to let go of that kind of expectation, or I don't even think it's humility. I think it's a false expectation that we shouldn't feel bad for being sad about a race being canceled, or that we shouldn't, feel the emotions that we have. Because as I said earlier, feeling those emotions is incredibly important in also being able to hold space for the possibilities and the opportunities that are yet to come. And so, if somebody is due to, one or many of those challenges that exist right now, I would say, one, give yourself some space and opportunity to just feel it. I encourage people to do really simple things like Talk to people around you. Don't pretend that things are better than they are. So it doesn't have to be everywhere. It doesn't have to be on social media, but if you've got one or two close people who you can say, I'm really struggling right now. This is feeling really hard. It's important to be able to just name that and get some support around it, and not feel so alone. The other thing, which is really simple, but I encourage people to do, is to journal. Write some things down. It can be a really helpful way of allowing some of that stuff that's on the inside to physically leave your body by putting it on paper. And if, writing in words doesn't do it, finding some kind of expressive way, whether it's, painting or drawing or making music or, sculpting or, making statues out of toothpicks, like whatever it is, letting yourself express that is important. I will always highlight the need for people to seek professional resources if it's something where people are feeling significantly more depression or anxiety than they've been feeling, especially if it's going on longer than a couple of weeks, such that it's changing eating patterns or sleeping patterns, or if people are feeling even suicidal. Those are important to name, to seek out a therapist. There are hotlines around suicidality and that sort of thing. And sort of bringing it back to our shared common interest. Movement, physical movement, is one of the greatest sources of support and physiological medicine that we can have in these times. And so I want to continue to highlight it. It's not that you're just going to run your way out of feelings of depression, but physical activity, especially 20 to 30 minutes with an elevated heart rate, on a regular basis, every day if you can, but even 2 to 4 days a week, has absolutely been shown to reduce symptoms of depression or anxiety, not only for people who already have it, but even for people who don't have depression and anxiety. That physical activity can reduce depression and anxiety in them. And so I encourage people to find ways to move. As we sort of joked about, if you're not running, take up running. If you can't run, go for a walk. Some people have some injuries and other things. There are lots of ways to get creative. I've been really impressed with the amount of resources that are now available between fitness instructors and different studios and gyms and that sort of thing, providing online content. November Project as well. It's free.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's my big thing is keep doing the things you've been doing. Add some of those pieces of self-care around movement, paying attention to how much sleep you're getting and doing your best to be rested, and then offering yourself an opportunity to either get some professional support or do some of the more informal things like talking to a friend or doing some journaling.
That's great. Thank you, Emily. Really
Thanks.
coming on today, and this has been really valuable. I know people are going to take a lot from it. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very happy to be a resource too for anyone who's looking for some support around their mental health, as well as their the mental side, their mindset and performance in terms of their sport goals. So please do reach out if there's any way I can be support.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, Mark. Take care.
Bye-bye.